Watershed. Staff members present this evening are Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, Victoria Steele, Director of Legislative Services, Henry Bowes, Coordinator of Municipal Law Enforcement, Emily McNeil, Municipal Law Enforcement Officer, and Dilhara Abiwardene, Administrative Coordinator. Live streaming, members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. Do any members of the committee have pecuniary interest with respect to the agenda this evening? No. Seeing none, we'll move on to the first item. Oh, sorry, there's no withdrawals or, okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to the first agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes. So for May 16th, have the committee had the opportunity to review the minutes? Open and closed minutes? Okay, anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes? Okay. So the motion moved by Kevin and seconded by Dan, resolved that the open and closed session minutes of the meeting held on May 16th, 2024 be approved. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. All those opposed? Seeing none. And we'll move on to the minutes of May 22nd, 2024. Any discussion on the minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll approve.
Thank you. And need a seconder? Moved by Member Billings, seconded by, sorry, yeah, I got the other one around. Moved by Member Collins, seconded by Member Billings, resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on May 22, 2024 be approved. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? It's carried. Next item on our agenda is the Committee of Adjustment Terms of Reference Amendment. Has the committee had... Oh, sorry. Okay.
You can't hear anything you're saying.
Okay.
That must be turned off. Is it turned off, the microphone?
No. It's on.
So far, you haven't missed anything.
We don't want to miss it.
Okay. So have the committee members had the opportunity to review the highlighted amendment made to the Committee Adjustment Terms of Reference? Are there any questions regarding the amendment? If so, could I have a mover and seconder to approve the amendment?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Moved by Member Antonitis, seconded by Member Collins. Resolved that the amendment of the Committee Adjustment Terms reference be approved. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? It's carried. So at this point, we're going to switch into the Property Standards Committee, and I was going to read an overview of the meeting procedures before. In considering a property standards appeal, the Town of Grimsby representative will first present their case to the committee, followed by the appellant. The committee has the opportunity to ask questions, and after each party has concluded their testimony and evidence. Upon considering the evidence and testimony arising in this hearing, the committee may confirm the property standards order, modify the order, rescind the order, or extend the compliance date on the order as the committee considers appropriate. The motions required with respect to the decision under appeal shall be seconded and shall be read by the chair before debate and shall be read again by the chair before being voted on. Once seconded, the motions may be debated by the committee. In situations where more than one decision is under appeal, each appeal shall be debated separately and voted on separately. Once each member of the committee has had the opportunity to state their position on the appeal before it, the chair shall call for a vote. Only a motion duly carried shall be the decision of the committee on the appeal. The municipality in which the property is situated or any owner or occupant or person affected by a decision of the Property Standards Committee may appeal the committee's decision to the Superior Court of Justice by notifying the town clerk in writing and applying to the court within 14 days after a copy of the decision is sent. So this first appeal and only appeal tonight is for Property Standards Order 2024-101 for the property municipally known as 15 Robinson Street North. Is the appellant or the agent for this appeal present this evening? Yeah.
Just to move a little closer
Yeah,
to the mic.
yeah. Okay, so the appellant is not here. Okay. Yeah, so the appellant is not here, so I'd like to now invite Officer Emily McNeil, Municipal Law Enforcement Officer for the Town of Grimsby, to introduce the appeal. Please come to the podium. Okay. Officer McNeil, do you affirm that the evidence given to you relating to the matter in question between the parties to this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Okay, go ahead and proceed.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Am I going to see the slides up there? Okay. My name is Emily McNeil. I am the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer for the Town of Grimsby. I am appointed as a Property Standards Officer. You can, next slide. In October of 2023, the house at 15 Robinson Street North was burned in a fire and has been in this burnt condition since. We have received multiple complaints regarding the burnt house at the property. I have previously attended the property for concerns under other bylaws. On March 6, 2024, I attended 15 Robinson Street North. Upon arriving at the property, I found that the building was in a burnt and vacant condition and had been damaged by the fire. I saw several openings where someone could potentially enter the building from. As you can see, there were uncovered window openings as well as tarped off sections that could serve as access points. These photos also show the gaps in the security fencing at the property. I found the property to be in violation of sections 3.1.1 and 5 of the Town of Grimsby's Property Standards Bylaw, No. 1517. Section 3.1.1 states that all land shall be kept clean and free from rubbish and debris and from objects or conditions that might create a health, fire, or accident hazard, including dilapidated buildings or structures. Section 5 requires that vacant buildings are boarded up to prevent entry and that no partially or completely vacant building remains boarded up for longer than 60 days. Section 5 also requires that vacant buildings not maintained under these standards are removed from the property and the land left in a graded and level condition. As I found the building at 15 Robinson Street North to be in violation of the Property Standards Bylaw, I decided that having the building removed from the property would best remedy the concerns. I prepared Property Standards Order No. 2024-101 for 15 Robinson Street North. The order required the property owners to remove dilapidated and burnt structure from the land and grade to a level condition. On March 6, 2024, I sent Property Standards Order No. 2024-101 to the 15 Robinson Street North property owners via registered mail. The property owners were given the deadline of April 10, 2024 to comply with the order. In summary, on March 6, 2024, I attended 15 Robinson Street North to inspect the burnt building and mailed Property Standards Order No. 2024-101 to the property owners. On April 9, 2024, the property owner submitted a notice of appeal regarding the Property Standards Order 2024-101. April 10, 2024 was the original date that 15 Robinson Street North was required to comply with the order by. On June 7, 2024, I returned to 15 Robinson Street North to take new photos of the burnt and vacant house to show the condition of it currently. The openings had been boarded up and fence fixed by Town of Grimsby contractors for other bylaw investigations regarding 15 Robinson Street North. The committee has the option to either confirm the order, rescind the order, extend the compliance date for the order, or modify the order of set conditions. We recommend that the committee confirms property standards order no 2024-101 as is.
Thank you. That conclude your testimony?
Yes.
Okay, do any members of the committee have questions for the witness?
Just one question through you, Mr. Chair. How long would it take to actually get demolition completed if we affirm or confirm this order? Like, what's the time frame? Like, they've had 6 months, 5 months from the fire till March, and now we're into June. So what's the timing like?
Through
From
you,
here.
through you, Mr. Chair, if the order is confirmed, we'll apply for a demolition permit as soon as possible. So we're thinking about 3 weeks.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And does anyone on the committee have a motion in regards to this appeal? No.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair. I'll move that resolve that Property Standards Committee confirm Property Standards Order number 2024-101. I don't think there's anything else part of this, so that's it. I'll make that motion.
So it's to confirm the order, correct? Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any debate on the motion? Okay, so we have moved by member Antonitis, seconded by member Billings, member Collins. Resolved that Property Standards, the Property Standards Committee confirm Property Standards Order number 2024-101. All those in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? That's carried. So the order is confirmed. Thank you.
So can you clarify for us exactly?
The order as it was issued stands, so they have to clear the property as soon as possible. Maybe staff want to speak to this?
Through you, the chair. So since noncompliance has passed, the individual does have 14 days to appeal to Superior Court. Once that has been done, the town will take action on the property and do the work on behalf of the property owner to ensure that the property standards order is fully completed and the property is brought into compliance.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, if you got another question? Actually, if you want to come to the podium, just so everyone can hear.
Sorry. Does the motor home get included in that order too? There's a motor home on the property that also is not occupied or just sitting there since before the fire.
Yeah.
So is that inclusive of the order?
Through the chair, so currently that motorhome is not included under that order, but staff will investigate that matter and ensure that all Town of Grimsby bylaws are met in regards to that motorhome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so that concludes the Property Standards Committee. Thank you, everyone, for attending. As adjourned at 7:15 p.m. And we're going to now proceed to Committee of Adjustment meeting.
Can you give super clear instruction on exactly what's just happened? Some of the terminology, I think, is this.
Yeah,
Time frame?
well, they spoke to the time frame already. There's an appeal period, and after that, the town will,
She's already appealed it once. How
yeah,
many times does she get to appeal?
she has one more chance to take it. Sorry, do you want to go ahead? It's to Superior Court.
Through the chair. So if any residents have any questions, I will be outside to answer any of those questions, just to ensure that we do not prolong this meeting any longer than it needs to be, and I can try to answer all of your questions as best as possible, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Just with
Yeah,
dismissed.
yeah. Just take a 2-minute recess. So,
Wait till the room clears.
yeah. We'll just pause until everyone who's here for the property standards is. Okay, for those who are still here, we're going to move into the Committee of Adjustment. So the purpose of the applications and relative correspondence will be heard, following by which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. To request a copy of the decision, please email Dahara Abouardene, Secretary-Treasurer at coa@grimsby.ca. The applicant, the Town of Grimsby, the minister, or a specified person or public body has the right to appeal the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, within 20 days of the date of giving notice of, under subsection 17, is completed for a consent application within 20 days of the date of a decision for minor variance application. Specified persons in certain public bodies include public utilities, but do not include an individual or a community or association. Everyone present will be given the opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions to the chair. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak. Each participant may only speak once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you are called, we ask that you state your name and address for the record. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the application. So we have 7 applications tonight, and the first one is A14-24 for 13 Bedford Park. Dahara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me just get the presentation up. So the first application is A1424 for 13 Bedford Park. The purpose of this application is to construct a single-family detached dwelling and driveway to permit a corner lot minimum exterior side yard setback of 3.08 meters, whereas 6 meters is required, to permit a minimum front yard setback of 11.92 meters, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 4.5 meters is required. To permit a lot coverage of 30.8%, whereas a lot coverage of 25% is required. To permit an attached garage to project 3.048 meters from the front porch, whereas no part of a garage shall project beyond the front wall of the first story of the dwelling. And to permit a driveway width of 7.86 meters, whereas 6 meters is permitted. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And these are the agencies that have provided comments. And I will now summarize the comments for you. So planning staff have reviewed the application and are of the opinion that the minor variance meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, is appropriate for the development of the lands, and is minor in nature. Therefore, they have no objections. Public Works offers the following comments. If existing services are proposed to be reused, an inspection by town staff prior to connection should be scheduled to ensure the existing services meet current conditions and town standards. They will review a lot grading and drainage plan at the time of building permit application to ensure drainage is contained within the respective lot and will not negatively impact neighboring properties, and no inherent detrimental side effects from the residential construction is to occur or affect any adjacent lands or storm sewer systems. All sediment control measures being instituted are to be erected prior to construction. Additionally, no comments have been received from the region, NPCA, GP, Grimsby Power, or the Ministry of Transportation, as in they do not have comments. And back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is the applicant or agent here? And come to the podium, please, and just state your name for the record.
Is it on? Sorry. So Nancy and Dave Vermeer, we live at 4877 Ontario Street, Lincoln.
Okay, any further comments or that you want to add?
Just thank you to the chair and the Committee of Adjustments for reviewing our application.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments from the committee or questions from the delegate?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chair. There's just some beautiful trees on the side of the property. I'm curious what what's destined for those trees on the side. Will they be removed for this building, or will they be maintained?
The side trees actually belong to the town. Okay. Can I speak further on that? We are going to hope that somebody comes out to look at them because some of them are cracked. So if there's any danger to our property when we build, we'd like maybe somebody from the town to look at them to see if they're healthy enough to stay.
Thank you.
Any other further questions from the committee? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing none, do I have a motion from the committee on this application?
So moved, Mr. Chair. I'll move that resolve that minor variance application A1424 for 13 Bedford Park to permit a corner lot minimum exterior side yard of 3.08 meters, whereas 6 meters is required, to permit a minimum front yard of 11.92, whereas a minimum front yard of 4.5 is required, and to permit a lot coverage of 30.8%, whereas 25 is required as per Section 7, Table 11, and to permit an attached garage to project 3.048 meters from the front porch, whereas no part of a garage shall project beyond the front wall, the first story of the dwelling, and to permit the driveway width of 7.86 meters, whereas 6 meters is permitted, as it is considered minor in nature, meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and is appropriate for the development of the land. I would move that it be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder on that?
I'll second that.
Moved by Member Antonitis, seconded by Member Collins. And I won't read the conditions again. Okay, that the application be approved. All those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? No. That's carried. So the next application we have is, there's a 20-day appeal period on this, so before the decision becomes final and binding. Thank you. So the next application will be 305 Kelson Avenue North. Dahara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of application A1624 for 305 Kelson Avenue North is to construct a secondary suite within the existing basement of the dwelling and to construct a porch in the front yard, to permit a secondary suite located solely within a cellar, whereas a secondary suite is not permitted solely within a cellar, and to permit an unenclosed porch encroachment into the front yard of 1.75 meters, whereas an encroachment of 1.5 meters is permitted. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice, and an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. Oh, sorry, that previous picture was what is proposed. And these are the agencies that have commented on the application, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have reviewed the application and are of the opinion that the minor variance meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, is appropriate for the development of the lands, and is minor in nature. Therefore, they have no objections. Public Works staff note that even with a secondary suite to the dwelling, only one service per lot is permitted. No additional service connections will be supported, and the secondary suite will need to be serviced through the existing services to the dwelling. The region has commented to say that the subject site is approximately 80 meters from the QEW highway. Regional staff recognize there is intervening development from the proposed development and the QEW, including a noise barrier. As such, regional staff suggest for the applicant's consideration that at the building permit stage, appropriate noise mitigation measures and building materials are implemented in the building design and construction in order to ensure that the recommended indoor sound levels of the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks guidelines is achieved, including the installation of central air conditioning so that windows can remain closed and double-pane windows. In addition, regional staff notes for the owner's information that future tenants should be made aware of the potential for noise from the QEW through the following warning clauses in tenant agreements. Tenants are advised that sound levels due highway traffic may occasionally interfere with some activities of the dwelling unit occupants, as the sound level may exceed the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks' noise criteria. The NPCA has commented to say that technical staff have noted that they can confirm the house and proposed addition are outside of the floodplain and that the property has safe access. As such, the NPCA can offer support for the proposed minor variance. The Ministry of Transportation have said that the subject site appears to be located within the MTO permit control area for highway QEW. As a result, the applicant should be made aware that an MTO building and land use permit will be required from this office prior to the start of any on-site construction or works. Further, MTO requests that the drawings related to be sent to this office for review. These comments are preliminary only, and prior to any MTO permit applications being submitted, the MTO requests that the city circulate the official site plan application for the subject site for review, where we will provide more detailed comments, including what materials will be required for review as part of the site plan application circulation. The Hamilton Conservation Authority has commented to say that they are satisfied that the application is consistent with the natural hazard policies of the PPS, and staff do not have any concerns with the approval of the requested minor variances. As the proposed development is located within HCA's regulated area, a permit from HCA will be required for the proposed development. And I have one letter of opposition for this, which I will read out now. My husband and I have lived at 700 Winston Road since 1978. We are opposed to the request for minor variance at 305 Kelson. We oppose the request to have a secondary suite located solely within the cellar, not permitted, including the cellar of the proposed addition to the back of the house, and to permit an unenclosed porch encroachment into the front yard of 1.75 meters, whereas an encroachment of 1.5 meters is permitted. There aren't any duplexed homes in the entire neighborhood from the westerly Grimsby boundary to Casablanca. Yes, there are townhomes and condominiums closer to Casablanca, but only single-family homes in our immediate neighborhood. In August 2021, Mazudul Alam purchased 305 Kelson and has been a detriment to the neighborhood ever since. He claimed 305 Kelson to be his principal residence but had it rented immediately after purchasing. We were victimized by the occupants for 2 years. The rental occupants were running a mechanic shop in the single-car garage and operating at all hours throughout the day and night. The rental occupants were breeding and selling pit bulls. These dogs were often running loose and freely throughout the neighborhood. The dogs terrorized the neighborhood. The SPCA was called numerous times. The rental occupants had several ATVs with underage, non-licensed drivers riding them on the roads around us. The rental occupants hung rubber rats on the hydro wires to the homeowners adjacent to 305 Kelson because they blamed them for ratting them out. In reality, several homeowners called the various agencies about numerous infractions. The rental occupants had industrial bins, numerous vehicles parked on the front lawn, as well as a mechanical hoist on the property. The residence looked like an industrial site. These events and situations lasted 2 years until the rental occupants moved out. The property was a mess. Even now, the front lawn is strewn with rubble and rocks. 305 Kelson had once been a meticulously kept property by the previous owners. That is no longer the case. We are convinced that Mazudul Alam has not displayed any pride or care for our neighborhood. If he is given permission to rent out 2 units, are we going to be subjected to twice as many problems we have already experienced? He claimed 305 Kelson was his primary residence before, and it wasn't. Will he make this claim again? We would ask that the committee deny his requests. Sincerely, Audrey and Paul Shaver. Over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is the applicant or agent here? Would you come to the podium, please? If you have any comments to add or want to respond to the correspondence, please state your name for the record.
So my name is Masoodul Alam. Yeah, there was a renter, there was mess. I agree. The whole thing, the person, the complainant said. But okay.
Yeah.
So yes, most of the complaints are correct. I agree that the renter actually didn't maintain the property. And now I'm thinking of retiring in this house. I'm 62 years old. I love this property. Now, the reason I wouldn't say it is a rental property that my intention is rather I would say multi-generational property. Maybe my son or daughter can come and stay there. I don't know. But I am thinking of making this property a nice one with the grading and everything. And it will take a little bit time because I have also in this application, there's an extension at the back, one room from basement to upper floor, ground floor. So once these things are done, it will be done, I'm hoping it will be done by the end of this year, and the lot will be graded and maintained. I bought the big lawn rider just to make sure that the grass doesn't go wild and everything. So my intention actually is to live here, not renting. My house, the house I was living in Brampton, I sold it. So that's the place I'm thinking. I love the neighborhood. It's so quiet, and the people are so good. I'll definitely make sure this property actually maintains the way it should be maintained. But I need a couple more times to do the construction because the permits and everything, it takes some time. I understand that. That is all I can say. But I'll make sure the property looks nice.
Okay, thank you. Could I just get your current address for the record as well?
Oh, 305 Kelson Avenue North.
Okay.
I live there now.
Okay, thank you.
The reason I am pushing it because the basement has leak and all this thing, and everything I live. It's like an unhealthy situation now, even though I live me and my wife only. But I need to get it done as soon as possible, make it's not a health hazard and all this kind of thing. That's the reason actually I was pushing to get the basement done. It was leaking with fungus and all this kind of stuff. I already cleaned those stuff and did the outside waterproofing and everything. Now it's ready to make it good. And everything, even, actually, I'm gonna taking all the old stuff piece by piece.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Sir, if you, actually, you just stay there for a second. Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, okay, sure.
So any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Fabian.
Through the chair, I have a question for you, sir. Are we dealing with that addition? Has that addition been built already?
No, I haven't even scratched anything. I'm waiting for the
Okay.
permit and everything. Once everything is in place, I'll start doing the work.
Okay, so the addition's on that drawing, but
Yes.
you haven't done that yet?
Nothing we did. Once there will be application, total application, once the committee accept or approve that, the next day I'll go and get everything, submit the drawing with necessary fees for both the addition and you call the basement, what you call term as illegal or whatever.
The basement and the...
The reason, again, the reason I want to make it legal is once I apply for that, the city will come, making sure that all the codes are adhered to. That's a cross check that I want to make sure it is built according to the current standard.
So you're living there now?
I'm living on the upstairs,
Oh, okay, I see.
and the downstairs is not fun. I don't go there even.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to
Thank
say that it's like it was maintained so badly by my renter.
That happens, okay.
I understand.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? If so, come to the podium and give your name and address for the record, please.
Audrey Shaver, 700 Winston Road. Could you tell me, please, how many families are living in your house right now? Just you and your wife? And you own, and you drive?
Sorry, you have to direct questions to the chair, and then...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then...
I'd like
just
to
give-
know, sorry, I apologize. I would like to know how many families are currently living in 305 Kelson.
Okay, any other questions? Let's just kind of bundle them together if you have.
How many vehicles do the two owners at 305 Kelson drive and park in the driveway?
Okay. Is there any questions from the committee for the delegate? If not, I'll have the owner respond. Sir, can you come up to the podium, please?
I got 3 vehicles now. I got 3 vehicles now parking outside. 2, one I drive, one my wife drives. 1 vehicle is Mazda 3, is for my daughter. Once in a while she comes, she drives. And there is another vehicle inside the garage. Is there any other question? These 3 vehicles on the driving part.
Yeah, she was wondering about how many families.
Oh, family, me and my wife. Sometime my daughter comes, lives there 2 or 3 days, and she goes to downtown or Newark. She works there. So that is all it is now.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, further questions from the committee for anyone? Anyone else wish to speak to this?
I just have one question for the delegate, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or, yeah, for the member. Did you call bylaw enforcement over some of the concerns that were raised, like parking and pit bulls and? 2 years? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was here earlier, so I'm just, was it them?
He knows me.
Okay, okay,
Trust me.
okay,
I've got him on speed dial.
okay.
I live on, do you want me to go?
Yeah, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
We can, let's save you a trip up.
I live on the corner of Winston.
For the record,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
can go up and,
Up and down?
yeah, we can't.
Oh, right, it's not on the thing. We need a
right.
second podium, I think, in the future.
I live on the corner of Winston and Kelson, so a lot of people walk down to the lake and go by my house. The pit bulls would terrorize, they're running loose. People would come to my house to make a phone call, to get a ride, to be safe, because the pit bulls, and then the kids on the ATVs. It really was a nightmare. And I can't emphasize enough how horrible it was.
Okay, yep.
As an owner, I was not even allowed to go in the house. I was so, and it was so bad, honestly. You are right, absolutely.
On paper, he lived there.
No, on paper, I didn't live
Okay.
there. No,
Yes,
I
one at a
didn't.
time,
I
please.
object. I lived there in Brampton, and that was in everywhere in my correspondence to the city, CRA, you name it. So I can prove that I was not living there officially. But unfortunately, you are right, the neighbor kept it like deplorable conditions. I came, even to move in, somehow, I had to spend $40,000. Renovating the bathroom, took out the floor, put the new floor. I know,
Ma'am.
it's all, I understand that. But I didn't really, I don't say anything that she said was absolutely right. She was absolutely right. I'm saying that.
Okay, I'm just going to give you one further comment, and then we got to wrap it up.
Well, I mean, I didn't put every detail in my complaint, but my fear is if you're going to rent it out, what we lived through when you had one rental unit, I cannot fathom what would happen with two. It was beyond a nightmare. They had a hoist, they're working on cars, they're grinding, welding, the pit bulls, all hours of the night. The neighbors were afraid of them. Everybody was afraid of them. Yeah, bad.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone further in the audience which to speak to this matter? Seeing none, do I have a motion from the committee on this matter and your reasons for? Anyone wish to make a motion? I'll make a motion. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. All right. Regarding the property at 305 Kelson Road North, resolved that the minor variance application A16-24 for 305 Kelson Road North to permit a secondary suite located solely within a cellar, whereas the secondary suite is not permitted solely within a cellar per section 4.19D in the zoning bylaw, 14-45 as amended, to permit an unenclosed porch encroachment into the front yard of 1.75 meters, whereas an encroachment of 1.5 meters is permitted per section 4.9C in the zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended. I think we should carry this, and this should be approved. That's my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So the motion moved by Member Billings, seconded by Member Collins to approve the application. Any further discussion or debate on it?
No.
All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. So that was carried. And so your application was approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. Okay, so next application. Yes, yeah, you can. You're welcome to stay if you wish.
Parting words for us.
Thank you. Okay. So the next application, actually is two of them, A23 and A23-23 and A24-23, part lot 82, plan 30M 39-1, parts 1 and 2, Ontario 30R-16115. Go ahead, Tahara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of these applications are to facilitate the construction of a two-story single detached dwelling, to permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters east and west, whereas 1.8 meters is permitted, and to permit a maximum porch encroachment of 2.5 meters into the required front yard, whereas 1.5 meters is permitted. These are the images of the site plans that were circulated along with the notices. This is an image of the part 1, an image of the neighborhood for context. And on the other side is the part 2, as you can see from the highlighted area over here. And these are the current conditions on site. This is an image of what is proposed for the site, or sites rather. And these are the agencies that have responded with comments, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have no objections, subject to one condition. They have reviewed the application and are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, are appropriate for the development of the lands, and are minor in nature. So the condition is that the location of the proposed porch be restricted to the location shown on the circulated plan, that is site plan drawn by SS dated May 13, 2024, revision 1. Public Works has one condition. Town staff will require a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating existing drainage patterns for the lot and at a minimum 5 meters beyond property line. The location and direction for all proposed downspout discharge points shall be shown on the plan. Heritage staff support the conditional approval of the application based on the following conditions. They have 5 conditions. Number 1, that vibration monitoring devices be added to the subject property and that heritage staff be provided access to the monitoring devices throughout the duration of the construction. 2, that a construction plan be provided and that it includes hoarding to protect the trees that are being retained on the subject property and abutting properties. Number 3, that a stabilization strategy be prepared by an engineer ensuring that the heritage building at 326 Main Street East is not structurally impacted during construction as a result of the reduced side yard setback. 4, that the location of the proposed porches be restricted to the location shown on the circulated plan. And number 5, that the final materials and colors be noted within the elevation submitted with the building permit and that those documents be reviewed and approved by heritage staff to ensure that the proposed dwellings' final design materials are compatible, distinguishable, and subordinate to the heritage dwellings at 332 and 326 Main Street West. Additionally, Niagara Region, Grimsby Power, Ministry of Transportation, and the MPCA do not have comments regarding this application. There is one letter of opposition, which I will read out to you now. This is from David Heatherton. Hello, I am writing in reference to file number 2323 and 2423. My name is David Heatherton, and I am the owner of 326 Main Street West. I have some concerns regarding this matter, namely the setbacks that are illustrated in the plan. The official town plan states that 3.4.7.4 compatibility criteria for stable residential neighborhoods. B, new dwellings within stable residential neighborhoods shall provide a consistent relationship with existing adjacent housing forms and the arrangement of these existing houses on their lot. As such, new dwellings shall provide for a similar lot coverage to adjacent housing to ensure that the massing or volume of the new dwelling reflects the scale and appearance of adjacent housing. 322 and 326 Main Street West are the adjacent properties and the lot coverage is not comparable. Maintain the predominant or average front yard setback for adjacent housing to preserve the streetscape edge and character. The house plan to be adjacent to ours would be so far forward that we would see the back of it through our front porch. And finally, provide for similar side yard setbacks to preserve the spaciousness on the street. Again, not even close. In fact, they want the setback to be less than is allowed in the bylaw, which is already far smaller than could be described as similar side yard setbacks. Is the official town plan enforceable, or would Losani simply appeal to the OLT again and walk all over us? Regards, David Heatherton. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is the agent or applicant here? Please come to the podium and just state your name and firm address for the record.
Need a bigger podium. Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Mark Condello. I'm a planner with Clenchnar and Associates here on behalf of Lizani Homes. For the record, our address is 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Suite 700, New Mississauga, Ontario. Tonight, I'm accompanied by Mr. Daniel Borelli of Lizani Homes. Mr. Chair, I did provide the Secretary Treasurer a quick slide deck, do a brief presentation.
Yes, I'm getting that up for you right now.
Thank you so much. So I'll just start. The applications apply to lands that neighbor each other. So and the applications speak to mirrored variances between the two lots. So my submissions tonight will speak to both applications. And on the slide is a quick aerial of the subject lands. The properties front onto Main Street West and are immediately east of the Wolverton Park. Main Street West is the town's urban settlement boundary limit, and these lands are located within that town's settlement boundary. If I can get the next slide, please. And again, for the record, the variances before the committee are to permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters on either side of the lot, whereas 1.8 meters is required or permitted, and to permit a maximum porch encroachment of 2.5 meters into the front yard, whereas 1.5 meters is permitted. If I can get the next slide, please. On the slide is a copy of the variance sketch that was submitted with the applications. I'll note that the sketch submitted with the applications shows building envelopes as opposed to building footprints. Building footprints will be further designed through the building permit process. This committee, and on the slide I've also noted where the variances have been applied for. This committee may remember that these applications were previously deferred from a November 2023 hearing, and at that time, Town Heritage staff had identified some concerns with the November 2023 proposal, which at that time included a variance to seek a reduction in the front yard setback from 20 meters, which is the zoning bylaw permissions, to 16 meters. Following that deferral, Lizani Homes has been working with planning and heritage staff to address staff's comments on the previous application. Staff did identify some, and I'll note that the application before the committee are a result of Lizani and our team working collaboratively with staff to find a solution that addresses the town's comments. The application before the committee no longer seeks that reduction to that front yard setback, but has again been amended to allow for a minor increase in the allowable front yard porch encroachment. The adjustment to the proposal, coupled with the conditions noted in the staff report, in my opinion, allow for an appropriate and compatible development while maintaining the character of Main Street. And if I can get a slide, please. Next slide. On the slide is a bit of a visual representation that was a tool we've used for our discussions with staff. Outlined in red is the existing zoning permissions that apply to the site. Outlined in blue are the extent of the proposed zoning, or my variances, I should say, that are being sought through these applications. And I'll note that I've reviewed the staff report. I agree with staff's analysis of the four tests, being that the proposal maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, that the proposal is minor in nature, and the proposal is desirable for the development of the lands. And Mr. Chair, those are my submissions. I do want to recognize that the neighbors' comments. I did not see the letter prior to today's meeting, so appreciate the Secretary Treasurer noting it. I'll just make a note that there were some, I guess I heard some concerns regarding the front yard setback and lot coverage. The only variances before committee today speak to side yard setbacks and allowing for a minor increase in the porch projection. All other zoning permissions with regards to lot coverage, rear yard, front yard setbacks, building height will be maintained through these applications.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from the committee on either of these applications?
No questions, Mr. Chair, but I do have some comments. I know the severance came before this committee a couple of years ago. I don't know if it was this committee or the previous committee that dealt with it. And there was significant opposition at the time to create two lots instead of maintaining one, the character of the neighborhood, the Main Street character of lot sizes and frontages and so on. So against the wish of the committee turned it down, and I think they went to OLT to get their severance, but there was significant opposition from this neighbor, a few others, and a former councillor that dealt with the subdivision. I'm still against this variance because, again, it proves that it wasn't really meant to be 2 lots. They still need variances, and I can't support it. Although I think it's minor, it doesn't meet the other 3 tests being appropriate for the development use of the property, or being desirable for the development of the land. So that's just my comments on this one, just based on the history of it. And
Okay, thank you. Do you want to respond to the comments?
I would like to respond, and I hope I can get some comments from staff as well, who wrote a supportive report for the application before you. I don't have to provide the history to you, but if we can just rewind to that OLT discussion, this lot is about 30 meters in width and 18 or 1,600 square meters in area before consent. The zoning bylaw says that each lot in this zone can be 15 meters wide and 800 square meters in area. The zoning bylaw recognizes that that piece of land at that time could be divided in half into 2 equal parts. And at that time, we didn't request any variances for lot area or lot width. At that time, again, we had the full support of staff. My submissions to you today are that we look at the variances before you, which are to amend the interior side yard setbacks and for the provision of a 1 meter larger porch. And we do have, staff support on this application. And so I would hope that we would be looking at this application alone on its merits, as opposed to the decisions of prior committees. So those are my submissions to you. We're not amending, anything else. We're not looking for variances on lot coverage, height, anything like that. All throughout the town, 1.2 meter side yards is a fairly standard size. So I'm not sure if staff have any comments.
Yeah, if staff wants to make any comments, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. Through the chair, I was just going to add that if this proposal was to be appealed, I just wanted to note that staff have put conditions in place to ensure that the building was adequately protected. And so I just wanted to note that if it was appealed and sent to the land tribunal, we could lose some of those conditions. So I just wanted to share that, and also note that a lot of time was spent with the available zoning. The setback is existing to ensure that, instead of doing the porch across the whole building, they asked for the severance, or the minor variance to be wider so that it didn't span the whole front of the building, and instead it projected more to the western boundary, opposed to impeding more view of the heritage building. So they did maintain the required front yard that way. And then I have added conditions in regarding the side yard to ensure that the heritage building is able to be stable as the work's being done. And then we also would have the ability through this to have more control over the materiality of the new builds through the building permit process. So I think that's a really important condition that we recommended tonight, and this minor variance being approved with those conditions would enable us to manage change that way, which if this hadn't come tonight and it was just through a building permit, we wouldn't have been able to. So I just wanted to note that.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee of the applicant or agent? I had a question, actually. Do you have any issue with the conditions?
No, so we've been, as Bianca has noted, or as Mark has noted, since deferral, we've been working with staff to get back on the agenda to gain their full support, because we don't want to go back to the tribunal on this application. It's expensive for both parties involved, so we want to find the most efficient route to a building permit and something that is satisfactory for both us and staff. And I think what we have come to is a consensus on what we think is appropriate for the development of these lands with those conditions imposed. And Bianca is absolutely right. Should committee decide to refuse this application, tomorrow we could come in with a building permit application that addresses none of those conditions imposed by heritage staff, with no architectural controls, no stability controls. And so that is what is before you today. So we do have full staff support here. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there anyone in the, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I do have a question. And it is regarding, through the chair, the final condition, the final materials and colors be noted within the elevations submitted. Now, are the elevations of the two houses as what we saw just recently? Are they staying the same? Or are you working with the heritage planner to change them to fit into that streetscape?
So I can defer to heritage staff on that, but these are drawings that they have seen for quite some time, so.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So the proposal, and my understanding is that's a general concept idea of what it would be. And we would work together on the final materials, but the goal is that it's compatible with, subordinate to, and distinguishable from. So we still want it to look like a product of today, but speak to some of the traditional elements, and you can kind of see that with the roof line. And we could still talk about materiality, but that's what we would be looking for at building permit, and that's in keeping with best practices. So it's kind of a balance, and I like to see it as equal parts and not too favorable, compatible, not too favorable, distinguishable, just something really well balanced. And so that would be the goal. And so that proposal, I think, speaks to some traditional roof lines while still not trying to mimic the heritage building and allowing it to be a product of today.
All right, thank you. Thanks, that answered my question.
Any final questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this matter? No. Seeing none, since we have two applications, we'll deal with the first application first. Does anyone wish to make a motion on the application for part one?
Is that okay, Mr. Chair, if I make a motion?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the merits of this application alone, and I'm going to make my judgment on that. I find it resolved that minor variance application A2323 for Part Lot 82, Plan 30M 391, Part 1 on 30R-16115 to permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters east and west, whereas 1.8 meters is permitted as per Section 721, Table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. To permit a maximum porch encroachment of 2.5 meters into the required front yard, whereas 1.5 meters is permitted as per Section 4.9C in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. Be approved due to the evidence I've seen in the staff report and the heritage report, and from what I'm seeing this evening. There are several conditions that have been read out. Unless you would like me to read them again, I can. Otherwise, I will just say as stated by the Secretary Treasurer.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder on this motion? Fabia? Okay, motion moved by Member Collins, second by Member Billings to be approved with conditions. Any final discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Thank you. That motion was carried, so the application for part one was approved, so we'll go to part two now. Does anyone want to make a motion on part two?
Yep. You want me to read it all again?
I guess for the record, I guess we should.
Okay. I find it resolved that minor variance application A2423 for Part Lot 82, Plan 30M 391, Part 2, ON 30R-16115 to permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters east and west, whereas 1.8 meters is permitted as per Section 721, Table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a maximum porch encroachment of 2.5 meters into the required front yard, whereas 1.5 meters is permitted as per Section 4.9C in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, be approved with all the conditions that the Secretary Treasurer read out at the beginning.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder on that motion? Evia? So the motion moved by Member Collins and seconded by Member Billings to be approved with conditions. Any debate or discussion on this? Yep, go ahead.
Through the chair, my name has no S, it's Billing.
My mistake. Okay, billing. Okay. Any further discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. All those opposed, if any. The motion was carried. So the application, both applications were approved, and they're subject to a 20-day appeal period before they come final and binding. Thank you. So the next applications we have are actually two consent applications and a minor variance application. So B0124 and B0224 for lots 1 and 2 at 260 Main Street West, along with the corresponding minor variance application A12-24. Dahara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the purpose of the first consent application, B0124, is to sever 809 square meters of land as Lot 1, to retain 1,616 square meters of land as Lot 2 and 3, and to provide easement for access and servicing in favor of Lots 2 and 3. And the purpose of B0224 is to sever 861 square meters of land as Lot 2, to retain 755 square meters of land as Lot 3, and to provide easement for access and servicing in favor of Lots 1 and 3. The purpose of the minor variance application is to construct 3 separate residential dwellings on the lots once severed. These are the variances requested. For Lot 1, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 45%, whereas 15% is required. To permit a minimum lot frontage of 4.1 meters, whereas 18 meters is required. To permit a maximum front yard setback of 42.1 meters, whereas 12 meters is required. To permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required, and to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters, whereas 25% of the depth of the lot, or 20 meters, is required. Variances for Lot 2, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 45%, whereas 15% is required. To permit a minimum lot frontage of 4.1 meters, whereas 18 meters is required. To permit a maximum front yard setback of 38.9 meters, whereas 12 meters is required. To permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. And to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters, whereas 25% of the depth of the lot, or 20 meters, is required. The variances for Lot 3, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 45%, whereas 15% is required. To permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. And to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters, whereas 25% of the depth of the lot, or 20 meters, is required. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notices. And this is an image of the minor variances on the site plan. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are an image of the current conditions on site. And these are the agencies that have provided comments, and I will go through those comments for you now. So planning staff have no objection to the consent proposed by the applicant, provided the following conditions are met. Number 1, concurrent consent application B02, these are the comments for Lot 1, the severance for Lot 1. So condition number 1, concurrent consent application B0224 is approved with conditions. Applicant to submit a plan with dimensions for the proposed easement. Applicant to submit a tree preservation plan as per section 7.3.1A of the official plan. Planning staff require that Lot 1, Lot 2, and Lot 3 provide adequate municipal services to serve the proposal as per section 3.4.1.4 of the official plan, and strongly recommend that the conditions provided by Public Works staff be implemented. Applicant to adhere to heritage comments in accordance with section 8.18 and section 9.12.4 of the official plan. Applicant to enter into an agreement with the town that is registered on title to address the conditions provided by Public Works staff and Heritage Planning staff in accordance with the provisions of Section 50.125D and Section 50.126 of the Planning Act. Additionally, the usual conditions we have for a severance application will also apply. They are number 1, that the applicant provide the Secretary Treasurer with deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel, a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for the issuance of the certificate of consent, that the final certificate fee payable to the town of Grimsby be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, that all conditions of consent be fulfilled within 1 year from the date of the notice of decision pursuant to subsection 5341 of the Planning Act, failing which this consent shall be deemed to be refused. Actually, that's 2 years. And finally, subsection 305 of section 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transaction involving the severed land. Then heritage staff can I have can I have one of the resolutions, the last one, the minor plans. Thanks. So heritage staff have some conditions as well, and I will read them out to you now. That the mature vegetation on the west side of the subject lands is maintained, that the applicant provides a construction plan with the building permit, that the construction plan include areas of potential impact from vibrations caused during construction and how the heritage resources structural stability will be taken into consideration during construction, that the construction plan include hoarding to protect the trees on the west side of the subject lands, that vibration monitoring devices be added to the subject property, and that heritage staff be provided access to the monitoring devices throughout the duration of the construction, that the final materials and colors be noted within the elevations submitted with the building permit, and that those documents be reviewed and approved by heritage staff to ensure that the proposed dwelling designs are compatible, distinguishable, and subordinate to the heritage dwelling at 262 Main Street West. That the mitigative measures and recommendations included within the cultural heritage impact assessment be integrated into the construction plan to ensure the preservation of the cultural heritage identified along Main Street. That the mitigative measures and recommendations included within the tree protection plan be integrated into the construction plan to ensure the preservation of mature trees along the Main Street corridor. That if the tree protection plan concludes that trees are in poor condition and require removal, that new vegetative screening be integrated within the west side of the subject lands to ensure that the new modern layer is appropriately integrated into the established corridor. That if required, the vegetative screening include trees found within the Carolinian forest in an effort to maintain and enhance the Carolinian forest species found throughout the town of Grimsby. Then Public Works has several comments and conditions. Please note that as per town standards, only one service connection is permitted per lot. This is inclusive of storm laterals, sanitary laterals, and water services. An easement for servicing will not be permitted. Each lot lot must have their own individual services from the main, that the applicant confirm that no existing utilities currently cross the proposed new property lines. Should any services cross this new property line, the applicant will be responsible for costs associated with their relocation and/or removal. As discussed during the pre-consultation meeting with the applicant, Public Works staff has considerable concerns about the grading of this site. The lots are sloped from south to north with no legal stormwater outlet. Additionally, Public Works staff note that stormwater management for this site is going to be challenging. Although this property fronts on a regional road and is technically not a Public Works engineering comment, Public Works have concern about the proposed driveway layout. An easement for access will require that no vehicles can park within the easement. That also means that Lot 1's driveway is only approximately 2 meters wide. In the event that the easement is obstructed by a parked vehicle, that prohibits any vehicles in Lot 1 from entering or exiting. Therefore, conditions are as follows. Town staff will require master lot grading and drainage plan for lots 1, 2, and 3, demonstrating the existing drainage patterns for the lot and, at a minimum, 5 meters beyond property line. The location for all downspout discharge points and direction shall be shown on the plan with all necessary details. All stormwater runoff shall be contained within the respective lot and shall not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. Number 2, town staff will require master site servicing plan for lots 1, 2, and 3, showing both the existing and proposed site services for water, storm, and sanitary. The plan is to include location, size, material, inverts, etc. from the municipal main to the building face for all services. Any abandoned services shall be decommissioned as per town standards. Number 3, a comprehensive master stormwater management report for lots 1, 2, and 3 is required, detailing the full stormwater management strategy. This report shall demonstrate how quality and quantity control will be handled on site. And finally, that the applicant apply for a municipal servicing permit through the town's Public Works Department to obtain approvals for the proposed services for the new lot. Regional staff do not object to the proposed consent applications, as the proposed development is consistent with the PPS and conforms to provincial and regional policies. They have the following conditions. Number 1, that the applicant owner submit a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment completed by a licensed archaeologist and receive acceptance from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism for the archaeological assessment. If the ministry requires further archaeological work to be completed prior to acknowledging this report, these reports must also be submitted to and acknowledged by the ministry to the satisfaction of Niagara region prior to clearance of this condition. No demolition, grading, or other soil disturbances shall take place on the subject property prior to the issuance of a letter from MCM through Niagara region, confirming that all archaeological resource concerns have met licensing and resource conservation requirements. Number 2, that the owner be informed of the following advisory clause. If deeply buried or previously undiscovered archaeological remains or resources are found during development activities on the subject lands, all activities must stop immediately. If the discovery is human remains, contact the police and coroner to secure the site. If the discovery is not human remains, the area must be secured to prevent site disturbance. The project proponent must then follow steps outlined in the Niagara Region Archaeological Management Plan, Appendix C. Number 3, that the owner submit a Phase 1 environmental site assessment, including soil sampling, as well as a letter of reliance allowing the Niagara region to rely on the findings of the ESA. Number 4, that the owner complete any recommended mitigation outlined in the above requested Phase 1 ESA. Number 5, that the owner be informed of the following advisory clause. Purchasers or tenants are advised that sound levels due to traffic from Main Street West, Regional Road 81, may occasionally interfere with some activities of the dwelling unit occupants, as the sound level exceeds the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks' noise criteria. And then moving on to Lot 2 of the severance. So planning staff have no objection to the consent proposed by the applicant, provided the conditions are met. The conditions are basically the same as the ones read out for Lot 1, except condition 1, which states that concurrent consent application B0124 is approved with conditions. And additionally, the usual conditions we have for a severance application that were read out previously for Lot 1 will also apply. The comments and conditions submitted by Public Works, Heritage, and the region are also essentially the same as what was read for Lot 1. Then moving on to the minor variance, it's the same thing. So planning staff have no objections of the approval of the minor variances to facilitate the construction of 3 separate residential dwellings on the lots once severed, provided the following conditions are met. The conditions are basically the same except that were read out for consent application Lot 1, except condition 1, which states that final approval of concurrent consent applications B01 24 and B02 24. And then the heritage comments are also the same, with the same 10 conditions. And Public Works offers a single comment and condition for the minor variance application. Public Works staff notes any swale within 1.25 meters and 1.3 meter setback may be challenging to design or construct due to the constraints. The typical standard for a swale is 0.9 meters in width. However, this will still need to be approved through the lot grading and drainage plan requirement. Their condition is that town staff will require master lot grading and drainage plan for lots 1, 2, and 3, demonstrating the existing drainage patterns for the lot and at a minimum 5 meters beyond property line. The location and direction for all proposed downspout discharge points shall be shown on the plan. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you very much for all that. So, is the agent applicant here and wants to add anything, or staff? Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just want to make one clarification. There were several heritage conditions that were requested as conditions of the consent applications. We respectfully request that those not be included in the consent application. It's intended that the planning condition number 6, I think it's number 6. 1 second. Yes. So it was the intent that those conditions be incorporated into the subdivision agreement and not be separate conditions of consent. So we request that the heritage conditions of the consent be deleted.
Okay, which conditions would that be?
All of the heritage conditions. It's the intent that the conditions be incorporated into the subdivision agreement, as we requested in condition number 6 in the planning memo. So I think there's a series of 10 conditions requested in the heritage memo in both cases. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
So we are deleting the heritage comments because
The heritage conditions
the
of the
heritage
consent only.
conditions of the consent applications only, because we have a planning condition in there that says that we are adhering to the heritage comments.
The planning condition number 6 that we requested
Yeah.
recommends that the heritage conditions be incorporated into the agreement
Yes.
instead of separate conditions of the consents. There should be 10 heritage conditions. I know. If you like, we can have a quick look at them and then identify which ones they are. Might be simpler.
That'd be appreciated.
Thank you. And in the meantime, I think the applicants have a presentation.
Yeah. So if the applicant or agent wants to speak to this, please come to the podium. Name and, I guess, firm address for the record.
Mr. Chair, I'll be up on your screen here as well. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to this tonight, and I believe Mr. Borelli is there as well. I'm just wondering if the Secretary Treasurer could put up the site plan. And I wanted to I remember being at the committee and there were a few questions on the proposal and the site plan and how we were illustrating the proposed lots and the proposed building footprints, but not, or the proposed building envelopes, but not the proposed lots. So I just wanted to speak to that for a minute because I think it may help address even some of the comments that were raised through the town comments. And just as a starting point, one of the things we wanted to add as additional information is what's happening in the area. So as we mentioned at the last meeting, the lands to the east lands to the west were draft approved, and there's additional lots. Lands to the north of the site are subject to a planning application with the city now for a zone change and plan a subdivision, plan a condominium. So you can see what's happening in the areas that there's been approvals for development in the area. And a couple of things I just want to point out there relative to what's being proposed with the lots on the subject lands is the lots in the proposed development are 10 meters by about 28 meters. So those lots that are to the north and to the west are actually quite smaller than what's being proposed for the lots on the subject lands. When you take just the lots on the subject lands, they're approximately the two rear lots 15 meters by about 45 to 50 meters. And the front lot is 22 meters by 39 meters. So when we kind of look at the area to the rear of the property, the lots that are being proposed are actually larger than the lots that have already been approved and that are also subject to application. So the other thing is there were some comments about the driveways and the actual building footprints and how the driveways and garages would work. So we wanted to take this plan, and you can see on the easement, we've identified the driveways for each of the lots. Each of the lots can accommodate a full driveway that will provide for at minimum 2 vehicle parking spaces for the rear lots, along with the garage. And the front lot will have access to the easement and the road and parking spaces. So in no case will there be a parking spot or need for parking within the easement that provides the access to the lots. The other comment that I just want to make with regard to the building envelopes is you can see that the size of the envelope fronting onto Main Street is generally reflective of the size of the existing homes along Main Street. So from a streetscape or frontage perspective, we believe that we're going to maintain that streetscape and the driveways to the side of the house, similar to some of the other homes along the street. And that house, front house on Main Street, we're actually showing a 2.4 meter wide setback from the interior lot line. And that will work from a building perspective, which I think the adjacent house is probably also built to the minimum side yard setback requirement. So we wanted to put this plan together to illustrate that some of the comments that related to can the homes appropriately fit on the 3 lots, we're suggesting that they can. They have adequate access. There's adequate space for the homes. There's adequate space for people's backyards or amenity. and there's adequate space for at least 2 vehicles parking within the driveway of each of the lots. So that's what we just wanted to point out to you relative to the concept. And just to reiterate some of the comments that were made with regard to the staff comments in support of the applications, we would agree with their opinions in association with the proposed consent applications meeting the provincial policy, support the regional comments that they support the consent applications with conditions, and that the town's official plan provides for consideration of this type of development. And with the variances, we support staff's position with regard to meeting the tests associated with minor variance for the lots. So we also understand Mr. Basic's comments with regard to the conditions. The heritage conditions were outlined in a memo June 14th, and we have no concerns with those conditions being rolled into the planning staff comments of June 19th that include the 6 conditions, with the 6th condition to relate to a development agreement registered on title that would include the requirements and conditions associated with the heritage comments, and may include other items and conditions relative to completion and implementation of the engineering comments. So we're happy to answer any questions tonight, and would appreciate that this committee support the staff recommendation for the consent and minor variances.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification for the committee, the planning department is requesting on the 2 consent applications, strike the conditions 20 through 29 as they're already going to be covered in, I guess, in the agreement. Do you wish to add anything further?
I have no further comments other than we support the regional recommendation and their analysis of how we conform with regional official plan and higher level provincial policies stemming from, the Planning Act, the PPS, and whatnot. And we also support planning staffs, town planning staffs, local context recommendation to approve these applications. We wanted to provide the committee with further context of how, these homes situate on the lot. Hopefully, we've done that today, and I don't have any further comments, but if you do have questions, please direct them to Mr. Aston or myself.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, I just have a question actually, because last meeting we kind of discussed the idea of splitting it in 2 instead of 3. What happened to there?
So I think what also stemmed from that conversation was looking to see how, I think what you saw the first time was a building envelope, and a building envelope that would comply with the official plan or with the zoning bylaw and the variances that we were requesting. What you see today is the building envelopes and of specific dwelling types. So we call it a Bordeaux, we call another one a Hamlet, and that's what's before you today. And so those building envelopes are just a little bit smaller, or much smaller than what you saw initially. And so what you're also seeing is driveways showing how parking will be accommodated on the site. So each driveway will accommodate more than 2 cars within the driveway. And then you'll also note a double car garage. These lots are, considerably sized for a new development, over, 700 square meters in area. In new developments, that's, not seen as often, as there was a slide that Mr. Aston pointed to with what's going on our boundaries, where the lot widths are a bit narrower, and the lot depths aren't as deep. So we thought that if we come forward with, to the committee with, housing types, that, you might also support the staff and regional recommendation to approve these applications. What you do see is that it's part of an evolving context in the area where there is more residential development, and you can see how we nestle into that evolving context. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee on the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the additional information provided by the applicant. I think it does give you a little better visual of the site plan and the buildings on there. But I think the concern I still have relates to the intensification of this lot. I mean, I'm still concerned about the Main Street character and heritage nature. I can't believe the heritage planner would be supportive of intensification like this along the Main Street character. I think when you look at the effect of the severance, the consent, is you're creating 3 lots that need a half page of variances. You got 5 variances on lot 1, 5 variances on lot 2, 3 variances on lot 3. One of them goes from 45% lot coverage up from 15, so a 300% increase. I think the cumulative effect of the severance creates a requirement to do all these severance. I think it belongs in a zone change or an official plan amendment, not a variance. This is way beyond a minor variance. So in my opinion, it's just intensification beyond reason.
Bianca, you want to speak?
Through the chair, yeah, maybe I can provide some context in how we came to our rationale and recommendations. So best practice for conservation is to go to the rear. So by having the development happening to the rear, the intensification, we're allowing the front parcel to be wider to meet the average lots while still allowing the site to evolve and change. Heritage isn't intended to stop development, it's intended to guide it. So the conditions are to guide the change. And so in a best practice, the density should be happening to the rear. And we're allowing that larger parcel to meet the rhythm of the street and still have that generous size where if we had subdivided down the middle, it would probably not have maintained that large lot in the front. It would have reduced it, and you would have had the loss of the larger lot fabric. So in my professional opinion, I think it's better to have the density happen at the rear and still maintain the larger lot in the front. And then we're going to use things like vegetative screening and the choice of materials to help it be integrated into the mature landscape. And then some of the other mechanisms we talked about are more from a structural standpoint to ensure that Nixon Hall is safe while the work is being done. So those are my thoughts or my opinion. But
you mentioned the number of variances. The significant majority, or not majority, but the significant number of the variances are a result of the shapes of the lots, because the back of the property doesn't have any frontage. So the only way to get access to is to provide a flag lot type development on this site, which is wholly appropriate along the section of Main Street. We have many examples of this type of development throughout town, and it's appropriate. Secondly, the density is still substantially less than the abutting densities that are developed to the west and to the north. The proposed lots to the back are substantially larger than the new lots that they abut to the west and the new lots that they will be abutting to the north. So we feel that the density of the site is very appropriate for this in the context of the area. And again, the number of variances that are being proposed shouldn't play a role in determining whether or not the application is minor. You have to look at the context of the site. Thank you.
Walter, quick question. Does the OP speak to flag-shaped lots or the creation of flag-shaped lots? They used to always speak to that.
Not specifically, but the official plan specifically says that along Main Street, along the heritage portions of Main Street, the appropriate form of development is in behind the frontage.
So just further to that, I'm sure we're going to hear from these landowners. There's a few more the other night, but creating these lots in the back become a bit of a, I don't know, I think an interference with your right to privacy and so on. You're creating two houses, potentially duplexes each. I mean, they're as of right. The as of right is to create duplexes or even triplexes, who knows, but having two new houses in your backyard, and I get it, you've got higher density on, I think it's Aspen, and the new, or the old greenhouse site to the north, but those are new infills on their own. It doesn't reflect the character of the main street, the large lots, and we saw that, what happened on the severance on the previous application from the same owner. So again, I just feel the cumulative effect of the consent is to create lots that don't fit the character of Main Street. They don't fit the character of the area, and the fact that you need 3 or 5 variances each speak to that. So I can't support this application.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to respond?
Sure. If we could just throw up the slide again showing the context of the community, current and planned. Thank you. So with respect to views along Main Street, actually first I would like to go back to what's currently shown. What is currently there on the site? Great. So when you're walking along Main Street or driving along Main Street West, you see a larger ranch-style home with its driveway towards the western edge. Post-severance, post-minor variance, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see a home situated close to being in that spot with a driveway on the same location. You're not going to see any difference along Main Street. You might see a home that has the support of heritage staff, that has been approved by heritage staff, that has colors and architectural features that are in keeping with what heritage staff think is appropriate for Main Street. If I could direct you to go to the next slide, showing the context. Correct, thank you. So the home or lot that's proposed closest to Main Street is set back, I think it was 2.4 meters away from that shared property line, close to where the neighboring dwelling is. The two homes in the back, lots 1 and lot 2, I can't really see from here, my eyes are bad, are set back even further than that home. And the structure in behind the home on our neighbor's end to the east. So not affecting the enjoyment of those lands. There is existing vegetation there along that shared property line. I think that it would be appropriate to provide screening along that shared property line so that there isn't adverse impacts or overlooker views. Our intent is to create a community that's appropriate for everyone, the people who are buying and the people who live there currently. I think, what you're seeing currently on the land is going to be reflective of what could be developed and what we're requesting to be developed or approved. And I think that those two homes in the back provide minimal impact to the neighbors on the east. And so, the number and nature of variances, as Mr. Basic has pointed out, is due to the configuration of the lots and trying to find a compatible development option. And as he has also stated, is much less dense than, what is being developed around this property and what could be developed on the property. So, we have conditions imposed by staff. Those would be held to us through the development process. And we are in full support of them.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments from the committee? Go ahead.
Through the chair, I just have a comment about this whole developing of 3 lots. And I think what you've done is good. It gives me more clarification of actually how you're laying out these lots. I agree with Kevin, it's high density. Isn't there a condo building going on part of the lot, the other land adjacent? But I think the 2 houses in the back, what are your plans for those? Will they be like patio homes, one-level bungalows? Because if they're anything higher than that, they're really going to be right in someone's backyard, especially the property as I see it to the right. So you're talking about the front house being a bungalow. Will the back 2 be bungalows as well?
I'm not sure that I necessarily said that the home fronting Main Street will be a bungalow. I think what I said is that it'll be a home. What you'll see as you're walking or driving past Main Street is a home and a driveway next to it. It's the same as what we're proposing here, is a home and a driveway next to it. The people walking along Main Street won't see the 2 homes in the back. They'll be adequately screened, and this is what staff are recommending. The 2 homes in the back, you know, we're going to develop them in accordance with the zoning bylaw before us. The homes that are being planned also have that option of being 2-story or 1-story. And they would have to be developed in accordance with the zoning regs applied for and approved by, I'd assume, council. So those are my submissions.
Okay, so any of the...
Mr. Chair, and sorry to interrupt. Just a comment that may, I think, help frame this discussion a little bit is in the proposed development to the north, my understanding is those units would be oriented to the street where it says proposed development. And the rear yards would be then the rear yards to the existing lots. The proposed applications are proposing the front yard and the garage adjacent to those lots with the rear yards in behind. I would suggest to you that based on my understanding how people are using their homes, by orienting the 2 units with the rear yards to the back, most people are building their decks using their rear yards in behind. And the front yard of a house is typically a porch, maybe an office. It's not the real active space. So the orientation of these units facing Main Street, facing those yards, I think will actually have less impact than what's already being proposed on the adjacent lots where it's rear yards that are interfacing with the existing homes. And by maintaining the trees, as Mr. Borelli had said, there will be a screen between those homes. So I think that is another just point of information maybe to consider when we're talking about where the homes are and the orientation of the homes. I would suggest to you that there would be more lots than 2 if these lands were part of that proposed development to the north. As you can see, you know, to the east of the lands, the lots are much smaller. So I think there's a good use of the land. There was a comment about the official plan. It does conform to the official plan and as confirmed by staff. And intensification really is the way things are going. We've worked with staff, and you heard from Heritage Planning about heritage and the streetscape. And so, I think we could probably provide some more detail and questions tonight. I think that's what we're proposing and looking, to see support from this committee in relation to support from staff and agencies.
I would just like to make one more submission. It's my understanding that the homes that we're backing onto in the proposed development and that we share a side yard with, those are semi-detached dwellings. And so a little bit more dense of a form than what we are proposing. And as Mr. Assens said, if these lands were included as part of that development, the overall shape of this land would be maybe a more intense form of development. So what we are doing is proposing 3 single detached dwellings, whereas, what is being proposed or what has maybe been approved, I'm not sure, draft approved, is semi-detached forms of homes. So a little bit more dense than, what you have before you today.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? You can go ahead.
There.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. What assurances do we have that the conceptual drawings or conceptual buildings we see now are what will be built? Last month we had talked about, or last meeting, we had mentioned that it was a conceptual building on that lot plan that the owner or whoever eventually this house will go to will pick the house that they want to go on this lot. And I only ask because it's nice to see it with the driveways and 17.2 meter length of the building, but last month it was 20 meters, the conceptual building, and the lot coverage hasn't changed. So it was 45% last month, it's 45% again this month. So what assurances do we have that what we're looking at is what we're approving? Because I just see the 45% number.
Yeah, so like I said, these are homes that we have built in the past. They're called Bordeaux and Hamlet style of home. And so these are what we think would fit well within the community. And it's not just what we think would fit well in the community, it's what staff would think would fit well in the community. The conditions imposed upon us or on Lozani Homes, the developer, is to obtain the approval of staff in the style of dwelling, in the way that it looks, and the way that it complements the existing built form and existing heritage around it. So what you're asking me is to provide you with a home, for sure. It's going to resemble what you see there, but it might slightly change based on, the recommendations, the final recommendations of staff, in order to support this development. Because if we don't fulfill those conditions within 2 years, our consent lapses and what you see before you doesn't exist. So to fulfill those conditions, we need to obtain staff support over and above their recommendation to approve the consent application today. It's called provisional consent, and that period lasts for 2 years. We have worked with staff to this point to obtain approval. We've obtained their comments in written form that they support the applications that are before you today. And it's not just town staff, it's as well as the upper tier who say that this form of development complies and is good development from a provincial standpoint. So, it's in our interest to obtain staff support. That's what was recommended to you today is an approval. And, we have 2 years to fulfill those conditions, and I think it's a good form of development and something that could complement the surrounding context. So,
Thank you. If I may follow up, then maybe this follow-up is for Walter. Would the town support last month's conceptual building?
Sorry. Yes, through you, Chair. Last month's conceptual building wasn't a building. It was a building, like a boundary within which a building can be built, which is setbacks, essentially. The buildings that are proposed, what floor areas are they generally? Like, they'd be over 2,000 square feet, the Bordeaux and the Hamlet.
Yeah, it would be about that.
Yeah. 45% lot coverage. If that was achieved on these lots, there would be very large houses, maybe like 6,000 square foot house. So would we support it? Yes, from the perspective of all of the existing lots, like the abutting lots of these, we'll use that one as an example. There will be one lot abutting that lot in the back. There will be one lot abutting it in the front. The location of the building, in terms of the impact of that lot, the impact could potentially be the same if there were no severances and just the house was built, a new house, depending on where the house is built. And a 15% lot coverage on the entire property would be a 6,000 square foot house or even bigger potentially. So the impact of that house, so that's basically what we're comparing. We're comparing what could be built without any variances and what could be built as is proposed. And I think the types of impacts that would be generated by the existing and proposed conditions would be negligibly different. So we would support it, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this? You can come to the podium and just give your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. I'm Jessica Morrow. I live with my husband, Greg Morrow, at 258 Main Street West. So we are the house to the east of this proposed change. I just want to clarify, was that 6,000 square feet that was mentioned about the houses? So I have a couple questions and a few comments. So one of them being, when we talk about the house that would stay in the front or would be built in the front, maintaining the character of Main Street West, I'm not sure how, like if there's 6,000 square feet homes, how that, we wouldn't see them behind that house that would match the character of the street. That just, I can't conceptualize that at all. So that's just one comment. Another comment is, you heard from Mr. Horton at the last meeting, you heard from Greg at the last meeting, and I just want to voice that, we moved into this house, we bought it in 2010 because Grimsby is a beautiful town. Main Street West is a beautiful road to live on. Lots of nature, mature trees. It's a really beautiful place to live. We had privacy in our backyard. And as you can see from this picture here, there's a lot of development happening around us. It's happening in our backyard now. We have come to terms with that. It's happening down the side with the 5 new lots behind the Heritage House. And now our backyard is going to be, all of the privacy is going to be compromised by very, very large homes. So it's devastating, to say the least, that our home that we're raising our children in, that has grown with us as our family has grown, is going to have no privacy anymore. It's going to have, there's no character to Main Street West anymore if this goes forward. So I just really urge you to keep that in mind. Our children are upset by this. They're aware that there will be people looking at them when they're playing in the backyard. There's a really big impact on, us as and on our neighbors as residents that have been here for, us for, I say a long time, but most of our neighbors have been here for much longer than us too, and everyone's quite upset by it. So I don't know if you want to comment. There's a couple questions I have too.
Yes, I do. Are we aware of the inverse of the sewer on Main Street? I'm not sure if I could ask the committee.
Yeah, I have to have staff
I am aware of the inverts because I tied into the sewer, which cost a significant amount of money on our part. They're about 8'5" below the road. So meaning that lot is about, I would say, to the two adjacent houses in the back, 180 feet back, 160 feet back, which means the amount of fall you need from the inverts of the sewers to the back lot is significant, meaning as well, and to put in terms as well, the slope of the lot. So that's a lot. So that means the back houses, the foundations of the basements are going to be up very high, which means the 6,000 square foot, two-story homes apparently are going to be even higher than what we're even thinking that a normal house looks like. That's all based on inverts of the sewers on the street. That's just one aspect of it. To me, it just doesn't make any sense unless there's sewage ejectors going in or whatnot, because if it just doesn't make sense. This foundation have to be up high. The houses have to be up very high to maintain that invert. That's just one aspect of it that comes across because I had to hook up to the sewer, and I'm very close to the street.
You had a question about the hookups to that too, right?
Well, we're planning with saying we want 3 separate hookups, 3 separate main hookups, 3 separate storm, from what I gather. To me, it sounds like a lot. It doesn't make any sense. Not to mention, when we did hook up to the sewer, there's an issue on the street that we mentioned to the city, or our township, sorry. And they said they have a dip in our line, which has nothing to do with this, but they said, we're not proposing to fix it because we don't want to disturb Main Street. And I said, okay. So we didn't take any further than that. This proposal is, you guys are going to be digging up the Main Street, tying into sewer mains, water mains, and the sanitary mains, ×3. That means the street's going to be shut down for days, not just one day. So I'll just take that into perspective, but I'm just confused on that aspect of this situation.
I also want to make a comment too, like when we talk about, density and, looking at what's going in around us, I just want to say, imagine living in like our home or Mr. Horton's home, and, to put in a perspective of, well, there could be more coming in, or they could be, there could be more density. Like I struggle with that because, this is our home. We've put our love and our money into it. And to have it presented as a perspective of it, there could be more in there, or it could be like what's going behind us. I just don't know that justifies, having 3 homes instead of saying, oh, there could be 6, or there could be, 7, or there's, more dense lots going in behind us. It still doesn't seem to fit with the character of Main Street West that we love and a lot of our residents love.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the delegates before we allow a response?
Actually, through the chair, my question is for the developer. There's 2 figures stated, 2,000 square feet or 6,000. What are you thinking on the houses back there? That's a big difference.
I would agree. And so I can give you some context for the 45% ask. If you look at the screen here, there's the RD4 zone proposed. That 0.45 indicates 45% lot coverage. So I would hope that, are we able to zoom in on this at all? Is there a zoom function? Okay. This is fine. So I'm not sure if committee members have a copy of this plan in front of them. If you're able to zoom, you'll see that there are setback lines noted throughout the concept plan. Those would be the extents of where homes could be built. So we don't have any plans to build a 6,000 square foot home on these lands. Our Bordeaux is probably 2,400 square feet or 21 or something like that. What you've shown here is what we have in our housing inventory. Those are not 6,000 square foot homes. Those are, you know, regular homes that you would see in a subdivision with 50-foot lots and 30 meters deep, except these lots are, you know, just a little bit deeper than that. So, you know, in a standard subdivision, you wouldn't see a 6,000 square foot home. You would see something of the magnitude between 21, 24, 25. And I think that's what is before you today. The only reason why the 45 number is there is because we looked at what was approved around us. So the zoning setbacks constrain us to a point where the 45% would likely not even be achieved on this site. So the end result of development would be something that's not 45% in lot coverage and likely to mirror what you have before you today.
Okay.
If that provides any assurance.
I also have a question. The perimeter, what you're planning to have some screening trees. What about a fence? What's the plan? Is there a fence that could be put up? Maybe that would buffer their property a little bit better from those houses in the back?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely something that we can explore. I don't see why we wouldn't want to provide a fence for those new property owners. I'm of the opinion fences make good neighbors, so I think, you know, that's something that's probably appropriate here, as well as maintaining the existing vegetation. You know, anything that we can do to, as you know, staff has said, is try to mitigate as best as possible, try and permit these homes in kind of a harmonious way into the community, just like, you know, the proposed development going on around us. So we're not here to build something, you know, large or, you know, obscene, like 6,000 square foot home on these lots. That I don't think staff would approve that because at the end of the day, staff need to approve the homes that do get situated on these lots. And I don't want to speak for them, but if I were to, I'd probably say that they probably wouldn't like that. And so.
Okay, so to protect the people that have been there a long time that are on that property to the right, you're suggesting you would be amenable to screening trees to soften that area and a fence, a big privacy fence, 6 foot, 7, maybe you need another variance.
Yeah, like whatever is permissible in the zoning bylaw, I believe even 2 meters. Yeah, that's fairly standard. And I believe, you know, even on the western edge where the Heritage Home is, there is measures that we have to endure on that side. So, you know, why not just do it on the other side as well? I don't see the issue with doing that. We are here to build homes that do fit the landscape, or that staff do think fit the landscape. And we are in, just as much as we're in your hands, we are in their hands as well, you know, in terms of the controls that they're placing upon this site. So those are my submissions to you today.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I may just add that with regard to the trees, condition 3 from planning is to do a tree preservation plan. So if there are trees on the boundary that are of species and size to retain, that would be part of the tree preservation plan, in addition to the fence, which I think we had offered at the last meeting, potentially as a condition being added to the approval.
Okay, thank you. Any further question? Do you want to speak to? Yeah, absolutely.
I just wonder if, I don't know how the fence would work, like to that height, given like there's fruit trees on our side, and so the preservation on the east side hasn't been mentioned to my knowledge. I could be wrong. But I just would want to know how we can guarantee that there would be a fence like that high and be able to still preserve the fruit trees, because they do overhang onto our property, which is beautiful because it gives us like really nice shade. And we would like to preserve those if possible. So I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, so as Mr. Austin alluded to, one of the conditions is a tree preservation plan. And so, you know, as part of developing these lands, we'll need to preserve those trees that are noted within the arborist or tree preservation plan. If, you know, we can definitely look at providing fencing that, you know, complements the existing community and that, you know, preserves those trees as best as possible.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee or anyone from the audience which to speak further to this?
I have another question. Just regarding, through the chair, just regarding those trees, who's determining the fate of the trees and if they're sustainable? Is it you or an arborist? What's your plan on that?
Yeah, so I think before we even get to that point, what we'll do is have a surveyor just go out and stake where those trees are, and then we'll have an arborist go out there and look at and assess the health and quality of those trees. And then from there, what they'll do is they'll prepare a report that notates what the preservation plan is and, you know, what the protections are of those trees and how to protect them through development. So, and that's ultimately to staff's approval. So, you know, that's part of the challenge of fulfilling conditions is, you know, we'll have to work with staff throughout this process. It's not a final thing as of tonight if this application does get approved, right?
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, just, I don't know, David, if you can answer, just speaking to, sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Greg, sorry.
Greg, to Greg's question about the invert level, I know there's an elevation issue. Can you speak to that? Because I know the house that's there, I believe, drains to the north across an easement of the former greenhouse land. So if you're planning to bring sewers forward from those back two, how will that be addressed? If it is, I know it is a shallow easement because there have been other issues along Main Street there. So maybe you can speak to that, or I don't know if you've got an engineer that's looked at it already.
Yeah, so we've seen those comments kind of come through, or not kind of, but actually come through from Public Works staff. And, you know, these are conditions that we have worked with or comments that we have worked with on other developments. And, you know, it's something that we can pose to our engineers and for solutions. It's something that we can definitely work towards finding a solution to. You know, some of our engineers, Lozani Homes has worked with for decades, and the engineer's job is to kind of engineer their way out of a problem. So if there is a problem, you know, it will be to the satisfaction of staff, and you know, they'll come up with the appropriate grading and drainage plans. You know, part of developing is ensuring that if there is a bad situation in terms of grading, the new development improves what's there. And so that's our goal on that front. In terms of this site servicing, you know, our engineers will look at, you know, what's the most feasible way to service this site, what's the most optimal, and what's the best route for both for the town and I think for the region. It's a regional road, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions from the committee or comments from the public?
Another question for them, just backing up a little bit, I guess you've done some really nice big homes along Main Street in the past historically, and there's a historical one that they fixed up. Is there no market demand for very large homes on large lots anymore? Is that the reason that they're coming to this? like, I see it as a very nice lot that could have a very nice estate quality home, but I'm just curious, is there no demand for that anymore? And two, would you be amenable to limiting those back houses to a one-story? Speaking to some of Fabia's concerns and the neighbors' concerns, and especially if you've got to elevate the basement to meet the grade, then perhaps one of the conditions be that it's limited to a one-story house in the back, and that will ensure that you won't see it from Main Street. I think that would be a good possible compromise or solution. Sorry, there's two questions there.
Yeah, so there's quite a few things with that one there. So let's look at the way provincial policy and let's call it some of the rhetoric around housing in Ontario has come out of late. Housing is expensive, land is expensive. And so if we were to build one large home on this piece of land, I'd assume that that would maybe not fit the market for what's currently around Grimsby. I think that 3 homes would be something that the market would be readily able to absorb, more readily able to absorb than some large home on this piece of land. This is this lot is 0.24 hectares in area. It's quite a large lot, about half an acre. So, that is quite large, and to fit one large home on there, that it just doesn't make any sense. New development has a mandate to meet certain targets, and I think the town wants to see residential development, and I think the town wants to see intensification. I think the region wants to see that as well. And so, it's now, okay, everyone wants intensification. How do we put that intensification that's sensitive to the existing landscape, existing and planned? And what you're seeing on that drawing there is what's existing and what's planned. And so, one large home on one lot doesn't fit what's existing and what's planned. What you're seeing through this proposal is a development that kind of mirrors what is going on around us. And so that's more or less what it is. The homes that are behind us, or I should say to the north of us, would face those same grading challenges, and would likely have to go through, and they would have to go through a rigorous review from Public Works, just the same that our development would have to go through. And so, those it hasn't been fully explored, and I'm not sure that we would commit to necessarily like a one-story home. What we're doing is both pre-variance and post-variance is something. We're not asking for additional height. We're asking for a single detached dwelling that meets the height of the existing zoning performance standards and what is planned around us. So.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee or comments from the public? Yep, go. Come on over. Right.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. The development behind us to the north has nothing to do with our area. It's completely separate. Their sewers already go out different ways since storm. They already have that engineered completely separate from ours, first off. Secondly, I understand development. Why not just split it right down the middle? The lot's quite wide enough to split it down the middle, build 2 homes on it, according to our development on the street. I can't from staff, you said that there's other developments with buildings in the back of their existing lots. I can't think of one right now that has that other than this proposal. So I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Yeah, maybe staff wants to comment on that.
Sure.
Thank you, through you, the chair. So right next door, Nixon Hall, that parcel went back it's actually 5 lots to the rear. That was all one lot. And again, best practice was to develop to the rear of the Heritage Building, and 5 lots were created with that parcel. We also just had a recent decision through the Ontario Land Tribunal where they permitted a building to be built in front of a heritage building and in behind a heritage building, and then used an easement agreement to preserve some views to the heritage building. And so with that, just talking about the balance of the current housing crisis and the needs for intensification while still balancing the needs for the preservation of the heritage. And so this is a situation where we're able to still have something very compatible on Main Street while enabling that density to occur to meet the needs of the housing crisis. And then we can use different tools like the vegetative screening and the fences to help allow this modern change to fit in with an established corridor. So we're seeing this a lot happen to the rear of development, rear of heritage buildings, adjacent to heritage buildings. And it's not just Grimsby all over. This is really becoming a balance of both. And so in this case, we're keeping that large lot adjacent to the heritage, which enables that rhythm along the corridor, that spacious lot, while still enabling change to occur. So it's balancing change and guiding it, not stopping it.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments from the public? Yep.
It's okay, it's back on. I just wanted to speak to the 5 backlots there. Are they not fronting onto Linden Lane? So they wouldn't, I don't know if I would consider that being built behind, like they will have their own laneway. So I do see that as a little bit different. One final comment, and I just want to say that, as of the last meeting, I believe the decision was that, rather than saying no to the 3 lots, we would come back with a lot for 2. So I don't know if that changes today, because it sounds like we do have the same plan, but I just wanted to end with that comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions or comments from the committee?
Sorry,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, could Mr. Horton not make it tonight?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have the 2 consent applications and the minor variance application before us. As the committee, someone want to make a motion? I don't know how they want to handle it, if they want to handle it as a package or handle them individually. Sorry, you want to speak again?
I just want to reiterate, for what it's worth, that the application before you today does have the recommended approval of the region for meeting provincial policy and their official plan, as well as the town recommendation for meeting the official plan, and then as well as meeting the 4 tests associated with a minor variance application. We've worked hard with staff to get to this point. This is not something that was just sprung onto staff. It was something that we've had multiple meetings with in order to get to this point. And so we endeavor to continue to working with staff to fulfill those conditions and to permit a compatible form of development for the community and for our neighbors. That is our goal. That is our objective with this development here. those are my submissions to you. Ultimately, the controls on us are in your hands tonight. You're given the power tonight to enable us to continue to working with staff to achieve an optimal development on this site. So that is what is before you today. That is the power that's been afforded to you. And it's the key to enable us to continue to working with staff to reach a consensus and to reach an ultimate approval of something that, does complement the existing community, and that is in concert with staff and only staff fulfilling those conditions. If you can, that's what I'm saying to you. That's our goal. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. I just want to be transparent on what I'm thinking before this goes to a vote. And what I'm thinking right now is that I don't really know what I'm voting for, right? Or what we're going to be going if it's going to be approved. Only because the building envelope is much larger than the conceptual building. With the sewer issue, is it a walkout basement? And and I say that in jest, but to get what you would need for the proper sewage drainage. And there's a bunch of unknowns that I'm seeing. And I know that you're saying that you're going to work with the town, you're going to come up with a plan, and everybody would be happy, but I just have a hard time putting my stamp of approval on that at this point without further details. So I don't know if anybody else wants to take that comment and run with it or comment on that. But that's just kind of, I want to be transparent with where I am in thinking about this application.
Yeah, if it's something that gives you comfort, I mean, we're open to amending the application to reducing the lot coverage ask to 40%. If that is, is something that, can be done tonight. I again, if saying to you is that, what you're tasked with doing is enabling us to continue to working with staff. That is our objective. And so, if this application, those are my submissions.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee?
Yeah, just further comments too. I think, although I didn't like the severance of the 326, it was approved by the OLT, and we're forced to look at a few variances in isolation, and in that, I think that would be a compromise solution. 2 lots, as Fabio said. In fact, maybe even sell the back half to create another lot next to lot 23 fronting on the proposed development street. So you get your 3rd lot that way, but you'd have to sell it to the adjacent owner or develop it in conjunction with them. But at least it would remove the impact on the neighbor. I think the greatest measure of impact is the people that are speaking today. They're the most impacted, not planners that are not connected directly or owned directly to these properties. So I can't support this application in its current form just because of the cumulative effect of the variances created in the lots and the sewer issue and some other noted things. I agree with the density and the infill intensification, but that's a citywide thing. You're not going to meet the density on every lot and every application. You're going to have high density areas, medium and low, and this is a low density area, and I think is appropriate for 2 lots, not 3. 2 would be a squeeze, 2 in my opinion, but it would be a good solution, a good compromise, and that's what I would support. So I can't support these applications in their current form. Mr. Chair, my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion or okay.
Yeah, I'm mindful of the time, but having said that, and maybe this is to Walter, what if a 2-lot solution came forward? Would that mean we vote on this application as it is now, or does it become a deferral with a revised, potentially revised application?
I'm not sure how that would happen. The two severances are for the two rear lots, so.
Apologies, like a two-lot solution instead of a three.
Two-lot solution isn't what's proposed. You'd have to deny these applications.
Fabia?
I have a comment. I actually don't mind the 3 lots that are being developed, but I think I would like to see something put into our conditions that there would be a fence, there would be some softening of that fence by some trees, consideration of the neighbors, and I'd also like to see maybe the square footage kept to about 2,000 to 2,300, and I'd like to see that in a condition too for the 2 back houses. Other than that, I don't think, I'm okay with the 3 lots. And I think it's workable between the neighbors and the developer and the town. My 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from the committee? Okay. That's it, okay. Is anyone prepared to make a motion or motions on these applications? And I'm not sure how you want to handle it, if you want to handle them in bulk or if you want to. Yeah, for the record, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, we could do the severance, the consents together. So if anyone makes a motion, feel free.
I'll make a motion for the 2 severances if you want to do them together. Resolve that consent application B0224 for 260 Main West and B0124 Lot 1 and Lot 2. So we'll do them together. On the provided sketch to retain, I'll read the whole thing, to sever 861 square meters of land shown in the proposed sketch as Lot 2, to retain 755 square meters of land shown on the provided sketch as Lot 3, and to provide easement for access and servicing in favor of lots 1 and 2. I guess we can still deal with them individually because they would be dealt with individually, the same vote. So I'm going to say, propose that they be refused. That's my motion. And I can do the second motion at the same time. Resolve the consent application B0124 for Lot 1 to sever 809 square meters of land shown in the provided sketch as Lot 1 to retain 1616 square meters of land on the provided sketch as Lot 2 and Lot 3 to provide easement for access and servicing in favor of Lot 2 and 3 be refused as well. If you want to deal with them concurrently or at the same time, it's up to you.
Okay, we'll deal, I guess, concurrently since they're materially the same. And do we have a seconder on that? Okay. Okay, so the motion is to refuse the application. So moved by Member Antonitis, seconded by Member Collins. So do we refuse? All those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, that's carried. So the consents were denied. Yeah, I guess we still have to deal with it, though. And that would be subject to the relevant appeal period, of course. So we'll deal lastly with the minor variance, A12-24. Any member of the committee want to make a motion?
I'll do the same. It's kind of redundant, but I would move that the resolve that the variances, and I'm not going to read them all, there's a half page there with the, be refused, as they are not considered, in my opinion, minor in nature, meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, or desirable for the development of the lands.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder on that? Dan? Okay, so resolve that minor variance application A12-24 be refused. Moved by Member Antonitis, seconded by Member Collins. All those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, so that was carried. So the minor variance application was also denied, and that's subject to the 20-day appeal period. I guess it would be somewhat irrelevant, though, the consent.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I think to Dan's point, I think there is some feeling that we could support a severance for 2. If they were to come back, I would make a motion that we waive the application fees because it's a very related application. Even though we denied these, technically they would have to reapply. and start all over, but at least the application fees could be waived if they wanted to resubmit the circulation fees, and that's the motion I would make on that, if we have the power to do that. And we know we've done it before for charities and some others, so I think in this case, I felt that would be an appropriate solution.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a seconder on that? Okay. I guess I'm just going to have to write this one out because we don't have a motion sheet for it.
If it was for the severance for 2 lots.
Sorry.
If it was for the severance for 2 lots, and any applicable variances.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out the wording. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of waiving future application fees as they relate to these 3 applications?
But for a specific application for a severance of 2 lots and
Okay.
the associated variance.
Yeah, so it's related to the, sorry, say it.
Severance.
Of 2 lots and the associated minor variances. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That's carried. So we waive the fees if you're going to come back with a similar application. Okay, thank you very much. And we just have one last item of business, and that is the discussion of OLT appeal and notification process. Does anybody have any comments on that, or? I guess I'll start because I saw another member who actually wasn't here make a comment regarding this. Yeah, maybe the planning staff can handle this one. In regards to OLT appeals, I guess there was some disappointment, the work of the committee, and I guess just how the council process handled. They, I guess, elected to have the legal counsel not show up for the appeal. What was it? Was it 5 Windward? I got the Casablanca Hotel, or 4.
What was the question again?
Yeah, no, it's just, there was some frustration, I guess, on behalf of another member in regards to the, I guess, being notified of the appeal. Now, I guess my question would be, according to the Planning Act, I think OLT appeals would come to the Secretary Treasurer, is that correct?
OLT appeals of the decision of the committee?
Yes, correct.
Would be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee,
Okay.
yes.
So I think there's, I think the frustration may be that we're not getting notification of these appeals. We're only finding out. I actually did see this one, research myself. I saw the appeal, but I'm just wondering if moving forward, we can actually get notification when these appeals come forward.
We can provide you with notification, but, once the committee's rendered a decision, you're done with it. You have no involvement with the decision anymore, other than for information purposes.
Yeah, because there's another thing I actually read is that I know in larger municipalities, the Committee of Adjustment is actually allowed to retain legal counsel if they want to defend the appeal themselves. Like, say, counsel refused. There was actually, I had a snippet of one from Brantford. It was actually in the council minutes. It says, it was questioned what the cost of the appeal would be. The clerk stated the minimum cost would be $15,000. The city would also be responsible for covering legal costs for the Committee of Adjustment if they obtain independent legal counsel to defend their decision. So I guess kind of maybe the question I would kind of like, I guess just information, maybe I have to talk to the clerk or legal or whatever, it's like that. Not necessarily regarding OLT appeals, but say we face a complex legal question or something like that. How do we deal with that? I mean, are we entitled to put that question to town legal counsel, or?
If the committee has a question regarding a legal matter, you pass a resolution asking for the issue to be resolved, and then we would consult with our legal counsel.
Okay, thanks.
And provide you with advice if necessary, as we've done in the past with training and all these other matters where we've involved legal counsel with the committee. But once the committee renders a decision, the question I have with regard to that Brantford, there's a discussion about Brantford having to pay for legal counsel to represent the Committee of Adjustment. Did they actually?
I didn't actually follow through with it.
I don't think they did.
Yeah.
I think they were making a point.
Yeah, you're correct, correct. I mean, it's not something that I would probably want to entertain at all because, taxpayer money is precious at any time. But, it's just more so, facing legal questions, this is something I'd like to know that we have in our toolkit to basically, that we can have legal consultant.
Yeah, if the question is, can the committee retain legal counsel to represent its position at an OLT hearing?
Yeah.
I'll ask that question on Friday morning.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, the next meeting of the Committee Adjustment will be July 16th, 2024, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming. Thanks.